The great hall of the Northern Pack had never been so full. Every seat was taken, every wall lined with warriors in ceremonial cloaks, and every eye was fixed on the raised platform, where Kalen Vasiliev stood waiting to be crowned Alpha King. Torches burned along the stone pillars, filling the air with the smell of smoke and pine, and somewhere beneath the noise of drums and low conversation, Lyra Ashworth could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She was not supposed to matter tonight. She was the daughter of a minor beta from a small border pack, invited only because her father had once served the crown faithfully. She wore a plain gray dress, nothing like the silks and furs of the noble families around her, and she had planned to stay quietly near the back, watching the coronation like everyone else. Then Kalen turned his head, and their eyes met. The bond snapped into place instantly, a warmth spreading through her chest, so sudden and complete that she gasped aloud. She felt his shock ripple back through the same invisible thread. For one breathless moment, the entire hall seemed to hold its breath with her. Mates. The whispers began immediately, spreading from row to row like fire through dry grass. Lyra had grown up hearing stories about fate bonds, about how rare and sacred they were, how an alpha who found his true mate was said to be blessed by the old spirits themselves. She had never imagined, not once, that fate would choose her. But Kalen's face did not soften. Instead, something cold moved behind his eyes. He was already promised to another. Everyone in the hall knew it. His marriage to Celine, daughter of Alpha Draven of the Eastern Territories, had been arranged for 2 years, a political alliance meant to secure peace between the two most powerful packs in the region. Celine stood beside the platform now, dressed in silver, her father watching Kalen with the sharp attention of a man who had invested everything in this union. Kalen looked at Lyra one more time, and then, in front of the entire hall, he said the words that would change everything. "I reject this bond." The hall erupted into murmurs. Lyra felt the rejection strike her like a physical blow, a tearing sensation deep in her chest, where the warmth had been only seconds before. Her knees nearly buckled. She pressed a hand to her stomach, willing herself not to fall, not here, not in front of everyone. Kalen was not finished. Perhaps it was pride, perhaps it was fear of losing the alliance with Draven, but he added, loud enough for the whole hall to hear, "She is unworthy of a crown." The words landed harder than the rejection itself. Lyra had done nothing but exist, nothing but be chosen by fate through no will of her own, and still, he humiliated her in front of hundreds of witnesses. She saw the pity on some faces, the amusement on others, and worst of all, she saw her own father lower his eyes, unable to look at her. She did not cry. She would not give any of them that satisfaction. Instead, she turned and walked out of the hall with her chin lifted, though every step felt like walking across broken glass. By morning, the news had spread through every neighboring territory. The girl rejected by the Alpha King. Some pitied her. Most simply forgot her, moving on to gossip about the coronation feast and the coming wedding to Celine. Lyra's own pack did not welcome her back easily. Her father, ashamed and afraid of drawing the new king's displeasure, told her gently but firmly that it would be better if she left for a while, until the talk died down. She understood. She did not blame him, not really. But understanding did not make it hurt less. She packed a single bag and left before sunrise, walking north, then west, away from every pack she had ever known, until the land grew wild and untamed. She had heard of the Ashen Border, a stretch of territory so poor and lawless that no alpha had ever bothered to claim it properly. It was where rogue wolves went when they had nowhere else, where the packless and the punished built whatever lives they could out of nothing. It was, Lyra thought bitterly, exactly where she belonged now. The first weeks were brutal. She slept in an abandoned watchtower with a broken roof, hunted for her own food, and learned quickly that kindness was rare in a place built by rejection and desperation. But she also learned something else. The people here were not weak. They were simply forgotten. Many of them were skilled fighters, healers, and strategists who had been cast out of their packs for reasons that had nothing to do with their worth, much like her. One evening, she shared her small fire with an old rogue named Bram, a former warlord who had once commanded armies before a betrayal stripped him of his rank. She offered him half her food without hesitation, and he studied her with narrowed eyes. "Why?" he asked. "You don't know me." "Because no one ever offered me anything either," she said, "and I'm tired of watching people go hungry just because someone else decided they didn't matter." Bram said nothing that night, but 3 days later, he returned with 2 others, a rogue healer named Tamsin and a woman named Iris, who had once served as a spy in a royal court before being framed and exiled. They did not ask Lyra to lead them. They simply began staying near her fire, listening when she spoke, and slowly, without either of them quite realizing when it happened, Lyra found herself at the center of something new. She did not build her following through strength or fear, the way most alphas did. She built it through fairness. She listened to every grievance, settled disputes without favoritism, and treated the lowest rogue with the same respect she gave to Bram, who had once commanded thousands. Word spread through the Ashen border, and then beyond it, that there was a woman building a real community out of nothing, one where a person's past did not determine their worth. Within a year, the Watchtower had become a fortified settlement. Within 2, it was a proper stronghold, with walls, trained warriors, and a council of advisors that Lyra had personally chosen for their skill rather than their bloodline. She called it the Ashen Pack, and slowly, it stopped being a place people fled to and started being a place people fought to earn a spot in. Neighboring alphas began to notice. At first, they laughed at the idea of a rejected woman building a pack out of rogues and exiles. Then, 3 separate attempts were made to raid the Ashen territory, each led by lesser alphas, hoping to claim the land and its resources for themselves. Every single attempt failed. Lyra did not rely on brute force to defend her people. She relied on the intelligence Iris had spent years gathering, the strategic mind Bram had spent decades sharpening, and her own growing understanding of how power actually worked. She exposed one attacking alpha's secret alliance to his own council, turning his allies against him before a single fight began. She let another underestimate her defenses completely, only to reveal that her scouts had already mapped every weakness in his forces. By the 3rd failed attempt, no alpha in the region dared move against the Ashen Pack without thinking twice. The whispers changed. She was no longer the rejected girl. She became the alpha every alpha feared to cross. Meanwhile, far to the north, Kaelin's kingdom was unraveling in ways he had never expected. His marriage to Selene, meant to secure lasting peace, instead brought constant interference from her father, Alpha Draven, who treated the alliance as an opportunity to control northern policy rather than support it. Selene herself grew resentful, aware that she had married a man who did not love her and never would, having rejected the one bond fate had actually given him. The court that once celebrated Kaelin's coronation now whispered about instability, about a king who had thrown away a fated mate for an alliance that brought him nothing but trouble. Kaelin told himself he did not think about Lyra. He told himself the rejection had been necessary, a king's duty over a wolf's instinct. But some nights, alone in his chambers, he felt the hollow place in his chest where the bond should have been, and he wondered what he had truly given up. It was nearly 3 years after the coronation when reports reached him of a stronghold rising along the southern border, an independent territory that no neighboring pack could conquer, ruled by a woman who had turned outcasts and rogues into one of the most feared forces in the region. When his advisors finally spoke her name, Kaelin felt the hollow place in his chest twist painfully. Lyra. He told himself it was a matter of state, that any king would need to understand a new power rising so close to his borders. He requested an audience, expecting perhaps to find the frightened girl from the coronation hall, humbled by years of hardship. He found something else entirely. The Ashen stronghold was nothing like the crude rogue camps he had imagined. Its walls were strong, its warriors disciplined, its halls filled not with fear, but with quiet loyalty. And at the center of it all sat Lyra, dressed simply, but carrying herself with a calm authority no crown could grant. She did not rise when he entered. She did not bow. "Kaelin," she said, her voice steady, "I did not expect to see you here." He studied her for a long moment, searching for the girl who had once nearly collapsed under the weight of his rejection. He did not find her. In her place stood someone he barely recognized, someone whose composure unsettled him more than any army could have. Your territory has grown, he said carefully. Impressive, for someone who once had nothing. I had everything I needed, she replied. I simply didn't need a crown to prove it. He tried, over the following hour, to speak of alliance, of the bond fate had given them, of the mistake he now understood he had made. He even offered her a place beside him, an undoing of the rejection, a throne shared rather than denied. Lyra listened to all of it without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment, studying the man who had once called her unworthy, in front of hundreds of witnesses. You didn't come here because you love me, she said finally. You came because your kingdom is unstable and mine is not. You came because the alliance you chose over me has brought you nothing but trouble, and now you think the bond you threw away might fix what you broke. Calen opened his mouth to argue, but there was nothing true he could say against it. I built this, Lyra continued, gesturing not just to the hall around them, but to everything it represented. Without you, every wall, every alliance, every loyal soul under this roof chose to be here because I gave them something real, not because fate forced them to. I don't need your crown, Calen. I never did. He left the Ashen Stronghold that day without the alliance he had come for, and without the reconciliation he had quietly hoped for as well. Word of the meeting spread quickly, carried by the same channels that had once spread news of her rejection. This time, the story told was different. The Alpha King had gone to the woman he cast aside, seeking her strength to save his failing kingdom, and she had turned him away. In the months that followed, the Ashen Pact continued to grow, drawing not only rogues and exiles but skilled wolves from established packs, who had grown tired of rulers who valued bloodline over character. Lyra's territory became known not for fear alone, but for fairness, the very quality that had built it from nothing. Rival alphas who once dismissed her now sought her counsel. Those who had once tried to conquer her now asked, carefully, for her friendship instead. Calen's kingdom, meanwhile, continued its slow decline, weighed down by an alliance built on nothing but political convenience. He watched from a distance as the empire he had once mocked grew stronger than his own, built by the very woman he had humiliated in front of the world. Lyra never sought revenge against him. She did not need to. Her success was its own answer to every cruel word he had once spoken, proof that worth was never his to measure in the first place. Standing on the walls of her stronghold one evening, watching her people move below her with the quiet confidence of those who finally belonged somewhere, Lyra understood something she could never have learned any other way. The rejection that once nearly broke her had, in the end, forced her to build something far greater than anything she had lost. She had not needed a crown to become a queen. She had simply needed the chance to prove it, and that chance, however painful its beginning, had been the making of her.